Hello, salam alaikum. How are you doing, everyone? 9.4, chapter 9, part 4, about the blood, is the part we covered in the last lesson last week before we start this distant learning procedure. Last day of school. Some of the classes did cover this part, some did not. That's why it came to my mind that we need to do it again. This part is about the blood itself. Chapter 9 is about transport in animals. This picture in front of you is a real picture for a blood sample, showing me red blood cells and white blood cells. So the ones in the purple are white blood cells. And they are differentiated into two types, lymphocytes and phagocytes. How did I recognize them? They are larger in size compared to the red blood cells or the RBCs. This is one. Number two, they have a nucleus. RBCs don't have a nucleus. This is two. How to tell the lymphocyte from the phagocyte? I can say that the lymphocyte have one intact large nucleus, as you can see here, while the phagocyte does have looped nucleus, meaning its nucleus is differentiated into two parts, sometimes two, sometimes three. One more thing, red blood cells are more abundant than white blood cells. More abundant than white blood cells. The second picture on the left side showing me red blood cells, white blood cells differentiated into lymphocytes and phagocytes, in addition to some kind of platelets. When we come to functions of the blood cells or blood cell components, number one, the red blood cells. The red blood cells are having hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a kind of protein. It's the protein that combines with oxygen in order to deliver it to body cells. So in their cytoplasm is a red pigment hemoglobin, a protein combined with iron. Hemoglobin combines with oxygen in places where there is a high concentration of oxygen. I mean the lung. In order to form oxyhemoglobin, due to the combination of hemoglobin with oxygen, we come up with a complex called oxyhemoglobin. By the way, this is a very weak complex. The bond between oxygen and hemoglobin is very weak, so that it can let go of oxygen at the body cells. Oxyhemoglobin is an unstable compound. That's what I mean with weak bond between oxygen and hemoglobin. It breaks down and releases its oxygen in places where the oxygen concentration is low, which is the body cells. This makes hemoglobin very useful in carrying oxygen from the lung to the tissues, every tissue in your body. Blood that contains mainly oxyhemoglobin is said to be oxygenated blood, while the one which does not is called deoxygenated blood. White blood cells are involved with phagocytosis and antibody production. Phagocytosis means engulfing the microbe. This is done by phagocytes. Okay? Antibody production is the function of the lymphocytes. So lymphocytes carry out lymphoproduction, phagocytes, phagocytosis. The two most numerous type of white blood cells are phagocytes. So you can say that phagocytes are more abundant than lymphocytes. The two of them, phagocytes and lymphocytes, are the most abundant kind of white blood cells. The phagocytes can move about by flowing action of their cytoplasm. They can escape from the capillaries to the tissues by squeezing between the cells of the capillaries through the pores to exit the capillary to the tissue in order to find the microbe and engulf them. They collect at the site of an infection in order to ingest or engulf the microbe, digest them using some enzymes. That's why you may find some debris of broken down cells inside the phagocytes. This process is called the phagocytosis. Engulfing the microbe is called the phagocytosis. In this way, they prevent the spread of infection through the body. One of the functions of the lymphocyte is to produce antibody. What is the job of the antibodies? The antibodies are to cause the microbes clump together so that they are ready for the phagocyte to come and engulf them, okay? Or destroy the microbes. This is other technique. About the platelets, they are pieces of special blood cells budded off in the red bone marrow. They help to clot the blood by releasing some chemicals. It wound and so stop bleeding. The plasma, which is the liquid part of the blood, plays a role in the transport of blood cells, ions, soluble nutrients, hormones, carbon dioxide. So if you study the structure of the plasma, you can find nutrients, waste products, carbon dioxides, and hormones as well. Clotting. What is clotting? It's the change of the blood from the liquid form into a solid form. When the tissue are damaged and blood vessels cut, platelets clump together and block the smaller capillaries, as you can see in this picture. The platelets and the damaged cells at the wound also produce a substance that act through series of enzymes. A soluble plasma protein called the fibrinogen, which come from the liver. So the liver produces a protein in liquid form called fibrinogen. This fibrinogen is flowing in the plasma and it can change it into solid form by the effect of some chemicals released from the platelets. As a result of this action, the fibrinogen is changed into insoluble fibrin, which form a network, a mesh of fibers across the wound. Red cells become trapped like fish in a net. And this network and so form a blood clot. The clot not only stop further loss of blood, but also prevent bacteria getting into the blood vessel. We did talk about tissue fluid, and we did mention that it's a fluid that exits the capillaries to bathe your body cells and tissues. So we can say that this is the plasma, excluding proteins and red blood cells. The tissue fluid contains white blood cells as well, just like the blood. This fluid may be in excess, so it should return back to the capillaries. Sometimes we have extra tissue fluid, so capillaries cannot collect this tissue fluid completely. That's why some of it need to go to the lymphatics instead of the capillaries, and from there back to the blood circulation. So the fluid that escapes from capillaries is not blood nor plasma, but tissue fluid, which is plasma minus red blood cells and proteins. Tissue fluid is similar to plasma but contains less protein because protein molecules are too large to exit the capillaries. This fluid bathes all living tissues in order to facilitate the process of diffusion between capillaries and body cells of the body, and since it contains the salt food and oxygen from the blood, supplies the cells with the need. Some of the tissue fluid eventually seep back into the capillaries, having given up its oxygen and the salt food to the body cells and collecting waste products and carbon dioxide from there. But it has now received the waste products of the cells, such as carbon dioxide, which are carried away by the bloodstream. This tissue fluid that does not return to the capillaries join the lymphatic system. I think that this is the end of our video. Hopefully it was useful for you. See you again. Best of luck.